Kangchenjunga, sometimes spelled Kanchenjunga, is the third highest mountain in the world, and lies partly in Nepal and partly in Sikkim, India. It rises with an elevation of 8,586 meters in a section of the Himalayas called Kangchenjunga Himal that is limited in the west by the Tamur River, in the north by the Lhonak Chu and Jongsang, and in the east by the Teesta River. It lies about 128 kilometers east of Mount Everest. Kangchenjunga is the second highest peak of the Himalaya after Mount Everest. The main peak of Kangchenjunga is the highest mountain in India and the second highest in Nepal. Kangchenjunga Main is also the easternmost of the mountains, higher than 8,000 meters. It is called Five Treasures of Snow after its 5 high peaks, and has always been worshipped by the people of Darjeeling and Sikkim. 3 of the 5 peaks, Main, Central and South, are on the border between North Sikkim in India and Nepal. 2 peaks are in the Taplejung district, Nepal. Until 1852, Kangchenjunga was assumed to be the highest mountain in the world, but calculations based on various readings and measurements made by the Great Trigonometrical Survey of India in 1849 came to the conclusion that Mount Everest, known as Peak 15 at the time, was the highest. Allowing for further verification of all calculations, it was officially announced in 1856 that Kangchenjunga is the third highest mountain. Kangchenjunga was first climbed on the 25th of May 1955 by Joe Brown and George Band, who were part of a British expedition. They stopped short of the summit as per the promise given to the Chogyal that the top of the mountain would remain inviolate. Every climber or climbing group that has reached the summit has followed this tradition. Other members of this expedition included John Angelo Jackson and Tom McKinnon. Names Kangchenjunga is the official spelling adopted by Douglas Freshfield A.M. Kellis and the Royal Geographical Society that gives the best indication of the Tibetan pronunciation. Freshfield referred to the spelling used by the Indian government since the late 19th century. There are a number of alternative spellings including Kangchenjunga, and Kanchenjunga. The brothers Herman, Adolf and Robert Schlagentweit explained the local name Kanchenjunga, meaning the 5 treasures of the high snow, as originating from the Tibetan word gangs, kn, meaning snow, ice, chen, tce, meaning great, and dzod, dizo, meaning treasure, lngan, meaning 5. It means the 5 repositories are ledges of great snow and is physically descriptive of its 5 peaks. Local Lopo people believe that the treasures are hidden but revealed to the devout when the world is in peril. The treasures comprise salt, gold, turquoise and precious stones, sacred scriptures, invincible armor or ammunition, grain and medicine. Kangchenjunga's name in the Limbu language is Senjalungma Asizilungma and is believed to be an abode of the omnipotent goddess Uma Samang. Protected areas. The Kangchenjunga landscape is a complex of 3 distinct ecoregions: the eastern Himalayan broadleaved and coniferous forests, the eastern Himalayan alpine shrub and meadows, and the Terai savanna and grasslands. The Kangchenjunga transboundary landscape is shared by Bhutan, China, India and Nepal, and comprises 14 protected areas with a total of 6,032 square kilometers. Nepal, Kanchenjunga Conservation Area. Sikkim, India, Kangchenjunga National Park, Basi Rhododendron Sanctuary, Phambong Lho Wildlife Sanctuary, Aung Yosla Alpine Sanctuary, Minam Wildlife Sanctuary, Shingba Rhododendron Sanctuary, Pangolika Wildlife Sanctuary. Darjeeling, India, Jorpoka Wildlife Sanctuary, Singalila National Park, Central Wildlife Sanctuary, Mahananda Wildlife Sanctuary, Neora Valley National Park. Bhutan, Torsa Strict Nature Reserve. These protected areas are habitats for many globally significant plant species such as rhododendrons and orchids, and many endangered flagship species such as snow leopard, Asian black bear, red panda, white-bellied musk deer, blood pheasant and chestnut-breasted partridge. Geography. The Kangchenjunga Himal section of the Himalayas lies both in Nepal and India, and encompasses 16 peaks over 7,000 meters. In the north, it is limited by the Lhonak Chu and Jongsang, and in the east by the Teesta River. The western limit runs from the Jongsang down the Gingsang and Kangchenjunga glaciers and the rivers of Gunsa and Tamur. Kanchenjunga rises about 20 kilometers south of the general alignment of the Great Himalayan Range, about 125 kilometers east-southeast of Mount Everest as the crow flies. South of the southern face of Kanchenjunga runs the 3,000 to 3,500 meters high Singalila Ridge that separates Sikkim from Nepal and northern West Bengal. Kangchenjunga and its satellite peaks form a huge mountain massif. The massif's 5 highest peaks are listed in the following table. The main ridge of the massif runs from north-northeast to south-southwest and forms a watershed to several rivers. Together with ridges running roughly from east to west, they form a giant cross. These ridges contain a host of peaks between 6,000 and 8,586 meters. The northern section includes Yalungkang, Kangchenjunga Central and South Kangbakan, Kirat Chuli and Gimagala Chuli, and runs up to the Jongsang. The eastern ridge in Sikkim includes Sinyolchu. The southern section runs along the Nepal-Sikkim border and includes Kabru-Ita 3. This ridge extends southwards to the Singalila Ridge. The western ridge culminates in the Kumbhakarna, also known as Janu. 4 main glaciers radiate from the peak, pointing roughly to the northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest. The Zemu Glacier in the northeast and the Talung Glacier in the southeast drain to the Teesta River, the Yalung Glacier in the southwest and the Kangchen Glacier in the northwest drain to the Arun and Kosi rivers. The glacier spread over the area above approximately 5,000 meters, and the glacialized area covers about 314 square kilometers in total. There are 120 glaciers in the Kangchenjunga Himal, of which 17 are debris-covered. Between 1958 and 1992, more than half of 57 examined glaciers had retreated, possibly due to rising of air temperature. Kangchenjunga Main is the highest elevation of the Brahmaputra River basin, which forms part of the Southeast Asian monsoon regime and is among the globally largest river basins. Kangchenjunga is one of 6 peaks above 8,000 meters located in the basin of the Kosi River, which is among the largest tributaries of the Ganges. The Kangchenjunga Massif forms also part of the Ganges basin. Although it is the 3rd highest peak in the world, Kangchenjunga is only ranked 29th by topographic prominence, a measure of a mountain's independent stature. The key col for Kangchenjunga lies at a height of 4,664 meters, along the watershed boundary between Arun and Brahmaputra rivers in Tibet. It is, however, the 4th most prominent peak in the Himalaya after Everest, and the western and eastern anchors of the Himalaya, Nanga Parbat and Namcha Barwa, respectively. Climbing history. Early reconnaissances and attempts between April 1848 and February 1849. Joseph Dalton Hooker explored parts of northern Sikkim and eastern Nepal, mainly to collect plants and study the distribution of Himalayan flora. He was based in Darjeeling, and made repeated excursions in the river valleys and into the foothills of Kangchenjunga up to an altitude of 15,620 feet. feet. In spring 1855, the German explorer Hermann Schlagentweit traveled to Darjeeling but was not allowed to proceed further north due to the Nepalese-Tibetan War. In May, he explored the Singila Ridge up to the peak of Tonglo for a meteorological survey. In 1879, Sarat Chandra Das and Lama Ugyen Gyatso crossed into Tibet west of Kangchenjunga via eastern Nepal and the Tashil Hunpo Monastery en route to Lhasa. They returned along the same route in 1881. In 1883, a party of William Woodman Graham together with two Swiss mountaineers climbed in the area of Kangchenjunga. They were the first to ascend it Kabru within 30 to 40 feet below the summit. They crossed the Kangla Pass and climbed a peak of nearly 19,000 feet from which they examined Janu. They concluded it was too late in the year for an attempt and returned once again to Darjeeling. Between October 1885 and January 1886, Rinzan Namgyal surveyed the unexplored north and west sides of Kangchenjunga. He was the first native surveyor to map the circuit of Kangchenjunga and provided sketches of each side of the peak and the adjoining valleys. He also defined the frontiers of Nepal, Tibet and Sikkim in this area. In 1899, British mountaineer Douglas Freshfield set out with his party comprising the Italian photographer Vittorio Sella. They were the first mountaineers to examine the lower and upper ramparts, and the great western face of Kangchenjunga, rising from the Kangchenjunga Glacier. In 1905, a party headed by Alistair Crowley was the first attempt at climbing the mountain. Alistair Crowley had been part of the team attempting the 1902 ascent of K2. The team reached an estimated altitude of 6,500 meters on the southwest side of the mountain before turning back. The exact height reached is somewhat unclear. Crowley stated that on the 31st of August we were certainly over 21,000 feet and possibly over 22,000 feet, when the team was forced to retreat to Camp 5 by the risk of avalanche. On the 1st of September, they evidently went further. Some members of the team, Raymond, Pachi and Salama, got over the bad patch that had forced them to return to Camp 5 the day before, and progressed out of sight and hearing, before returning to Crowley and the men with packs, who could not cross the dangerous section unassisted with the burdens. It is not clear how far Raymond, Pachi and Salama had ascended, but in summarizing, Crowley ventured we had reached a height of approximately 25,000 feet. Attempting a mutinous, late in the day descent from Camp 5 to Camp 4, climber Alexis Pachi and 3 local porters were killed in an avalanche. Despite the insistence of one of the men that the demon of Kangchenjunga was propitiated with the sacrifice, Crowley decided enough was enough and that it was inappropriate to continue. In 1907, 2 Norwegians set about climbing Jongri via the Kabru Glacier to the south, an approach apparently rejected by Graham's party. Progress was very slow, partly because of problems with supplies and porters, and presumably also lack of fitness and acclimatization. However, from the high camp at about 22,600 feet they were eventually able to reach a point 50 or 60 feet below the summit before they were turned back by strong winds. In 1929, the German Paul Bauer led an expedition team that reached 7,400 meters on the northeast spur before being turned back by a 5-day storm. In May 1929, the American D.F. Farmer left Darjeeling with native porters, crossed the Kangla into Nepal and climbed up towards the Talung Saddle. When his porters refused to go any further, he climbed alone further upwards through drifting mists but did not return. In 1930, Gunter Dierenfurth led an international expedition comprising the German Uli Whelan, Austrian Erwin Schneider and Englishman Frank Smythe, who attempted to climb Kangchenjunga. They failed due to poor weather and snow conditions. In 1931, Paul Bauer led a second German expedition team who attempted the northeast spur before being turned back by bad weather, illnesses, and deaths. The team retreated after climbing only a little higher than the 1929 attempt. In 1954, John Kemp led a party comprising J. W. Tucker, S. R. Jackson, G. C. Lewis, T. H. Braham, and medical officer Dr. D. S. Matthews. They explored the upper Yalung Glacier with the intention to discover a practicable route to the great ice shelf that runs across the southwest face of Kangchenjunga. This reconnaissance led to the route used by the successful 1955 expedition. First ascent in 1955, Joe Brown and George Band made the first ascent on the 25th of May, followed by Norman Hardy and Tony Streether on the 26th of May. The full team also included John Clegg, Charles Evans, John Angelo Jackson, Neil Mather, and Tom McKinnon. The ascent proved that Aleister Crowley's 1905 route was viable. The route starts on the Yalung Glacier to the southwest of the peak, and climbs the Yalung face, which is 3,000 meters high. The main feature of this face is the Great Shelf, a large sloping plateau at around 7,500 meters, covered by a hanging glacier. The route is almost entirely on snow glacier, and one icefall. The summit ridge itself can involve a small amount of travel on rock. The first ascent expedition made 6 camps above the base camp, 2 below the shelf, 2 on it, and 2 above it. They started on the 18th of April, and everyone was back to base camp by the 28th of May. Other notable ascents: 1973, climbers Yutaka Agata and Takeo Matsuda of the Japanese expedition summited Kangchenjunga west by climbing the S.W. Ridge. 1977, the second ascent of Kangchenjunga by an Indian Army team led by Colonel Narendra Kumar. They completed the northeast spur, the difficult ridge that defeated German expeditions in 1929 and 1931. 1978, Polish teams made the first successful ascents of the summits Kangchenjunga South and Kangchenjunga Central. 1979, the third ascent on the 16th of May, and the first without oxygen, by Doug Scott, Peter Boardman and Joe Tasker, establishing a new route on the North Ridge. 1982 to the 6th of May, Sisang Doya, Friedel Muchlichner, and Reinhold Messner reached the top by a variation on the North Face route without supplemental oxygen. 1983, Pierre Beguin made the first solo ascent. It was accomplished without the use of supplemental oxygen. 1986, on the 11th of January, Krzysztof Wielicki and Jerzy Kukuczka, Polish climbers, made the first winter ascent. Otto Guillaume Gerstenberger Jr. and Johann Krieger reached the peak without using supplemental oxygen. 1988, first successful American expedition, led by Carlos Buller, from the North Face. Summiting were Buller, Peter Habler and Martin Zabaleta. 1989, a Soviet expedition successfully traversed all 4 summits of Kangchenjunga that are higher than 8,000 meters. 2 separate teams traversed the summits in opposite directions. 1989, American expedition led by Lou Whitaker, with 6 people summiting on the North Wall. George Dunn, Craig Van Hoy, Ed Viesters, Phil Urschler, Larry Nielsen, Greg Wilson. 1991, Slovenian Maria Frantar and Jose Roseman attempted the first ascent by a woman. The bodies were later found below the summit head wall. 1991, Slovenian Andrei Stremfulj and Marko Prezelj completed an alpine-style climb up the south ridge of Kangchenjunga to the south summit. 1992, Carlos Carsolio made the only summit that year. It was in a solo climb without supplementary oxygen. 1992 Wanda Rutkiewicz, the first woman in the world to ascend and descend K2, and a world-renowned Polish climber, died after she insisted on waiting for an incoming storm to pass, which she did not survive. 1995 Benoit Chamoux, Pierre Royer and the Sherpa guide disappeared on 6 October near the summit. 1998 Annette Harrison was the first woman who climbed Kangchenjunga North Face. 2005 Alan Hinks, a British climber, was the only person to summit in the 50th anniversary of the first ascent year. 2006 Gerlinde Kaltenbrunner, an Austrian mountaineer, was the second woman to reach the summit. 2009 John Gangdale and Matthias Carlsen reached the summit, becoming, respectively, the first Norwegian and the first Swedish mountaineer to summit this mountain. 2009 Ed Ern Pasarban, a Spanish mountaineer, reached the summit, becoming the first woman to summit 12 8,000ers. In May 2009, Kinga Baranowska was the first Polish woman to reach the summit of Kangchenjunga. 2011 Tunç Findik became the first Turkish man to reach the peak of Kangchenjunga, his 7th 8,000er, with Swiss partner Guntis Brands via the British 1955 SW Face route. 2011 Indian mountaineers Basanta Singh Roy and Debasish Biswas of Mountaineers Association of Krishnanagar, West Bengal, India, successfully scaled Kangchenjunga main on 20 May 2011. In May 2013, 5 climbers including Hungarian ZSOLT Eros and Petakis reached the summit, but disappeared during the descent. In May 2014, Bulgarian Boyan Petrov reached the peak without using oxygen. Petrov is a diabetic. Despite improved climbing gear, the fatality rate of climbers attempting to summit Kanchenjunga is high. Since the 1990s, more than 20% of people died while climbing Kanchenjunga's main peak. Tourism. Some of the most famous views of Kangchenjunga are from the hill station of Darjeeling and Antu Dada of Ilam, Nepal. The Darjeeling War Memorial is among the most visited places from which Kangchenjunga is observed. On a clear day it presents an image not so much of a mountain but of a white wall hanging from the sky. The people of Sikkim revere Kangchenjunga as a sacred mountain. Permission to climb the mountain from the Indian side is rarely given, due to its remote location in Nepal and the difficulty involved in accessing it from India. The Kangchenjunga region is not much explored by trekkers. It has therefore retained much of its pristine beauty. In Sikkim too, trekking into the Kangchenjunga region has just recently been permitted. The Gochila trek is gaining popularity amongst tourists. It goes to the Gochila Pass, located right in front of the huge southeast face of Kangchenjunga. Another trek to Green Lake Basin has recently been opened for trekking. This trek goes to the northeast side of Kangchenjunga along the famous Semu Glacier. In myth, the area around Kangchenjunga is said to be home to a mountain deity called Dzona or Kangchenjunga demon, a type of Yeti Rakshasa. A British geological expedition in 1925 spotted a bipedal creature which they asked the locals about, who referred to it as the Kangchenjunga demon. For generations, there have been legends recounted by the inhabitants of the areas surrounding Mount Kangchenjunga, both in Sikkim and in Nepal, that there is a valley of immortality hidden on its slopes. These stories are well known to both the original inhabitants of the area, the Lepcha people, and those of the Tibetan Buddhist cultural tradition. In Tibetan, this valley is known as Baal Demo Shong. In 1962, a Tibetan Lama by the name of Tuishak Lingpa led over 300 followers into the high snow slopes of Kanchenjunga to open the way to Baal Demo Shong. The story of this expedition is recounted in the 2011 book A Step Away from Paradise.